All right, good afternoon, everyone. That was a nice introduction.
Wow.
Data, data, data. In the real estate industry, the mantra is location, location, location. In AI, it's data, data, data. But I feel that's the case for business full stop. Business is run on data. And we're used to the idea of AI feeding into data models. Everyone's heard about the training of models like ChatGPT. What's different about agentic AI models? Maybe you could tell us about that, Daniela. What kind of data differences are we needing from that? And maybe tell us a bit about Defined before you start.
Yeah, well, Defined.ai is the largest marketplace of training data for AI, ethically sourced, meaning that with us, our customers don't show up in the front page of the New York Times with a lawsuit for data copyright infringement. Well, agentic AI, first of all, it's still in the beginning. It's in the inception of it. We see an actual product starting really happening is autonomous driving. That's a good definition of a product that executes decisions on its own for the most part. And as we know, it's still very guardrailed. It still only works in certain cities in the world. It takes a lot to train an agent. So it's a lot of promise and still not delivery in this sense. But agentic AI is a multi-model representation of the world, just like we humans see the world with all the five senses that we have. So it combines different inputs of data that are speech and text and visual and turn by turn and different types of compositions that are reasoning, that lead to reasoning, which requires a type of data that it doesn't quite yet exist in the wild, but it's coming. It's coming.
Olga, the data needs of AI models have changed dramatically in the last several years even, but before that, there were very different requirements. Maybe you could tell us a bit about Toloka and tell us how the data needs of AI models have evolved over the years.
Sure. So Toloka provides human expert data for training, fine-tuning, and evaluating foundational models, and basically AI. Because as ironical as it sounds, and probably not everybody in this audience actually has this understanding, so I'd like to highlight on that. As ironical as it sounds, AI is developed, powered by a large amount of examples created and crafted by human experts. So underneath every foundational model, every AI solution that you're using, be it ChatGPT, be it Claude, whatever you're using, it is actually trained on large amount of examples crafted by human experts. And it's interesting that you're mentioning the evolution of AI over the years, because I'd like to compare actually AI with the development of a human developing his or her capabilities, intellectual capabilities over the years. Like 10 years ago, I would say AI was kind of a kid, like 3 years old kid going to kindergarten, not to school. And actually what we've been teaching AI were quite basic fundamental stuff. This is a cat, this is a dog, this is good, this is bad, this is pedestrian, this is a car. And that was the type of the data that has been using to train and develop AI. Then in the era of Gen AI, when ChatGPT came out, I would say our AI kid went to university or to high school. So we actually started teaching it some fundamental academic knowledge. This is when you needed to attract highly skilled domain experts in specific fields of knowledge, like PhD professors in physics, in mathematics, to actually provide benchmark ideal examples and answers, like how should the ideal answer to your question to ChatGPT actually look like. So you needed a large amount of human experts to provide you with this ground truth data. And now, with the era of AI agents, our AI kid is actually starting to work in a real job. So AI is starting to learn how to use specific tools, how to use Excel, how to use Salesforce, how to navigate in real business environment. And so the data that is needed to train AI is evolutionizing together with that. Now we are not only talking about content and text prepared by deeply knowledgeable domain experts. We are also talking about combination of the data and the environments in which this data is produced. Because AI agents, unlike if ChatGPT was actually interacting with a user on one single surface, it was always like a chatbot. Now AI agents are interacting with the user on multiple surfaces. It interacts with your computer. It uses your mail. It uses your programs, your tools, etc. That's why every data item that needs to be produced to fine-tune AI agents actually contains of the environment in which the agent operates, the test case, and the trajectories which these AI agents are following.
That moves on very interestingly because if an enterprise is trying to deploy an agentic system to help their business, they have to rely on the data being meaningful and ethical. And maybe, Daniela, you mentioned ethics just a bit before. What does ethical data mean? Where does it come from? How do you create ethical data to train AI?
So first of all, it needs to be consented. And we also do the human-in-the-loop data creation and labeling and annotation. When you're collecting data from a human, the human has to consent, even if the person is being paid has to consent that the usage of their data is going to be training an AI model. So legal documents. It has to be when you're getting data from an existing data set, for example, film producer, filmmakers, aggregators in a certain country of a certain genre, they produce the content. All the people involved in that movie production have to have consented that that kind of data is going to be trained in an AI model. Sometimes the data needs to be displayed. If you are hiring a voice talent to become the brand voice of a company, that is biometric data that is going to be used of a talent. So actors do that all the time, of course, and they're paid accordingly to that. The consistency and the fair pay of the type of data, plus the display of their data, of their voice, in a way that can be cloned. It's really down to a lot of legal paperwork, the right transparency and traceability to the source, and fair pay.
Which again leads on to the very next bit. When you, and Olga, you mentioned this, if you're running a company and you're deploying AI agents to help you, you have to give them access to your email, to your phone records, to even chat messages you might have with your colleagues. What kind of reputational risk is involved with that? Because we know that AI is fallible and hallucinates and makes mistakes. If a company's deploying agentic AI and relying on really intense and private data, what kind of risk are they facing?
Well, that is, I think, one of the cornerstone questions of AI agents production right now. That's why what we see from our optics as being the provider of the data to, I would say, different actors on the AI industry, starting with producers of foundational models, such as Anthropic or some others, followed by the producers of Copilot studios, agent factories in different ways they're being called, like from Microsoft, Amazon, Google, providing the customers abilities to create their own agents integrated into ecosystems of the respected companies. And further on towards the enterprises who are using and fine-tuning their agents to amplify the efficiency of their operations. If we are talking about the data, I would say that there are different types of the data that is being used in order to support the fact that the agents are operating efficiently and ethically and according to the guardrails and etc. So on the foundational level, basically everything that we do is we power and we train foundational models with this human knowledge, teaching it the foundational abilities, like to reason, to use the tool views, and so on. And obviously, red teaming and establishing safety evaluations is very important. So on that level, the companies are using like abstract use cases and abstract examples to ensure that their agents are, in theory, working like abstractly on a large amount of abstract use cases are working properly. Then when we go further to more practical use cases, the companies are focusing on more particular use cases, like how these AI agents would interact with the particular application, with, I don't know, Google Drive, with Salesforce, with something else. So a lot of data is used to ensure the proper behavior of the agents interacting with the particular tools and particular solutions. And then on the level of the enterprises, and I do think that that is the part that is still being developed, and I do not think that we are there yet when enterprises are actively fine-tuning AI agents with specific custom data for their needs. But basically, this is when you come down to ensuring that your agent works in accordance to your particular guidelines, your particular policies, it relates to your particular knowledge base, and whatever else.
We've said the word data so many times, it's starting to not mean anything. But we have to all agree that not all data is created equal. And actually, if you're training a model, particularly if it's going to go into a business-critical agentic AI process, you need high-quality data. And how does high-quality data get found and used by someone who's deploying AI, Daniela?
I would like to go back to not all data is created equally.
Okay.
Yes. So I would probably say there's maybe 3 types of data. The publicly available data, and I'm saying this between quotes because publicly available doesn't mean free, doesn't mean copyright clear. So that's one thing, right? So there's that. But unfortunately, the largest companies or the most well-funded companies have in-house constant web crawlers precisely harvesting that publicly available data. That data has little to none monetization value, and really it's the baseline of every model. The second type of data is actually, there's the second one is closed source data, which is what we carry and we produce. We aggregate large amounts of data from that are closed source, that we make, we structure and make it available for licensing, properly cleared and legal. But we also collect that type of data. The third type of data is customer data. Very important aspect is the data that the enterprises collect from their customers, and that until very recently, and a lot of them still not very clear, or they insert terms and conditions that disguise the use of your data, or you opt in without even knowing what you're opting in pages and pages of documentation there. So that's customer data, which right now, it's been a huge asset to train and personalize models. And finally, you have custom data that you collect like Olga said, to fulfill a specific gap in a model, whether it's a domain-specific gap or a bias model. So this is why all data is
Not all data
built
is equal.
all different.
We've got basically a minute left to tackle perhaps the hardest question. We're on stage in Europe, and regulation about data protection in Europe is much stronger than it is in some other parts of the world, the US, for example. And there's a lot more regulation about deploying AI. What does the role of data regulation have for the future of AI training in Europe, do you think? Maybe Olga could give us an idea here.
It's a good question. I do think that it's always important to find a proper balance between regulation and supporting the development. I do think the whole industry, regardless of the country, is trying to find that optimal balance. Obviously, this is not something that can be left completely unregulated because the stakes are high and the responsibility is huge. So the question is how we implement the regulations that are really actionable. And that is a very interesting process to observe and to help the whole industry shape that in a proper form.
Daniela?
Regulation should not invade privacy. That would be...
That should go on a T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was very interesting. Thanks very much for helping us talk through some of the very fundamental aspects of training AI models, which is all about data.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.